West Midlands Fire and Rescue wants 60% of new recruits to be women and 35% to be from black and minority ethnic groups by 2021. By my reckoning, that only leaves 5% for everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, it's so bizarre. I think this story is such a perfect snapshot of where identity politics is going, because when West Midlands Fire Service makes it more difficult for a white person to get into the fire service and easier for a black person or a woman, they're insulting all groups. They're insulting white people by discriminating against them and making it harder. And they're really patronising black people by saying you have to have an easier test because you're not really up to as much stuff as white people are. So it really captures, in fact, that identity politics, this new woke idea of everything having to be perfectly the same, is actually very anti-equality.
Yes.
Very, very patronising to minority groups and to women. And what we really need to focus on is just having a standard that we expect all people to be able to reach.
Also, by the way, I know that this has been a conversation that we've had before, but if you are about to be rescued from a burning building, you'd probably quite like a big burly fireman to be at the top of the ladder when you look out the window, rather than a sort of 5'1", rather, shall we say, petite woman.
That's a really good point. I think, this kind of this fairness idea, I'm putting air quote marks around that, but this fairness idea that the woke people push, I mean, who really cares what they do in universities and those kinds of places? But when it comes to the fire service or the army, and I would say the police as well, you want big, strong people. You want strapping people who are able to carry you down a ladder. You don't care what their racial origins are. You don't care what their sexual orientation is or anything like that. You want them to be strong and you want them to be capable.
Yeah, exactly. I don't care who they vote for. I don't care what they do in their spare time. Literally, they're there to do a job, and it means it makes perfect sense, I would have thought, for people who do that job to be the best people who are equipped to do that job. And, I mean, what I also find remarkable is that if this was, say, the other way around, and imagine if they just reworded it where they said they want 60% of the next recruitment drive to go to solely white men. Can you imagine what would happen?
Yeah, there'd be uproar, and rightly there would be uproar, because, my approach to these things is we should be colourblind in relation to all of this stuff. And I am perfectly happy for anyone to apply to join the fire service, wherever they come from, so long as they reach that standard that we all expect from a public service that takes real serious risks to rescue people from burning buildings and every other situation. So the problem we have in this kind of woke era is this kind of relentless racialization of everyday life, where we constantly are judging people by their race. We are desperate. Institutions are desperate to have the right number of black people, the right number of white people, the right number of gay people. We've become obsessed with measuring people by their identity, rather than just saying to them, guys, apply for this job, prove your worth, and we will approach you on an equal basis and take you on board if you are good.
Yeah. I mean, how much of this do you think is being driven by the legal profession? My favourite form of abuse is against barristers, who all think they're terribly clever, but who are also always looking to do some kind of bad against society by forming lawsuits. And, just because you didn't get a job, let's find a reason why. Oh, I know, it's because you had blonde hair, or it's because you had, the wrong colour turquoise, fingernails or something. They're always looking for a reason to sue. And I wonder whether some of this is driven by these organisations being frightened of LGBT campaigners, because if they don't hire enough gay people, they will somehow be sued.
I think legal activism is a key part of this, and a lot of people are making a lot of money from equality law complaints. And if you look at someone like Samira Ahmed at the BBC, who got a £700,000 payout on the basis that she had been sexually discriminated against, no reasonable person believes that she was paid less than Jeremy Vine because she's a woman. No. Everyone knows it's because he's incredibly well known.
Yeah.
His show, Points of View, was actually watched by people, whereas her show, Newswatch, wasn't. But when employment tribunals make those kind of judgments and say, well, that's sexual discrimination, it gives a green light to more of this legal activism, and it makes the workplace a really divided situation. And I think that's one of the problems with these cases.
Well, I said the same thing about Sarah Montague. It's one thing to say that John Humphreys was paid a ridiculous amount of money, which I can't justify anyway. The idea that he was getting paid £700,000 a year for presenting a radio programme. I mean, God, I wish we all were, right? But here's the thing. You can't pretend that presenting the Today programme is the same job for two completely different people. John Humphrey's a very well-known guy. Sarah Montague, nobody's ever heard of.
Absolutely. You know, my view on the BBC is that it's kind of getting past its sell-by date. And I think there's lots of questions to be asked about the TV licence. There's lots of questions to be asked about the fact that you can be compelled by law to pay money to the BBC, and then they give hundreds of thousands to people who often don't deserve it. But the fact of the matter is, I refuse to believe there is any sex discrimination at the BBC. What's happening is that some female presenters are using the oppression argument actually to get a good payout and to get a really nice sum of money. And so the cynical use of feministic arguments for self-serving purposes, I don't like that at all.
No, exactly right. And also, they've opened an interesting can of worms overnight, because by killing off the Victoria Derbyshire show, what they've proven is that they can basically do that whenever they want. So why not kill off a load more stuff?
Absolutely. And, you know, and I think it was Piers Morgan, someone made the point that, you know, are they now going to be shutting down TV shows presented by women in order to cover the costs of all this other stuff that's going on from female presenters, which would be a great and terrible irony.
It would.
I think the BBC needs to get its house in order. It has to remember it's a public service broadcaster. It shouldn't be as biased as it has become. It shouldn't be as paternalistic as it has become. I think it's lost its way, and these cases are a good snapshot of that.
Absolutely right. Now, talking of sexism, this, if you thought that last story was weird, how about this one? A woman by the name of Melanie Morgan, aged 31, took pictures of herself struggling to grasp her hand around a petrol pump. She's now declared petrol pumps to be sexist, and she wants something done about it.
It's unbelievable. I mean, it's so ridiculous. The other one I heard a couple of years ago was that air conditioning is sexist. I mean, everything. Yeah. You know, and they refer to it as everyday sexism.
That's right.
They're actually just talking about perfectly normal things.
It's like I call it everyday life.
Everyday life. And it's what it really symbolises is that there are a lot of people out there, and they're often very middle-class people, usually. They're on the hunt for oppression. They want to feel oppressed. They want to feel like a victim. So they constantly have to look for evidence of their victimhood, even though none really exists. So they just blow everything out of proportion, because in the woke era, everyone wants to be a victim. Everyone wants sympathy. Everyone wants to say, I suffer from structural oppression. And as a consequence, they just blow these things out of proportion and claim that they are being discriminated against because of the size of a petrol pump handle is so pathetic.
These are the same people, by the way, who don't want you to hold the door open for them and who would balk at any suggestion that a man should come out of the petrol station office, lift the petrol station pump and put the petrol station pump in your car and actually fill the car for you, which is what used to happen.
Well, you know, these are tough times for chivalrous people. I offered to help a lady on the tube last year with what looked like an incredibly heavy bag, and she snapped at me and said, "I don't need your help." I think I think feminism has caused a lot of confusion for men and women. Yeah. And things that were perfectly normal in the past, like the size of petrol pump handles or a man opening a door, whatever it might be, all of those have become problematized and proof of the patriarchal oppression. Everyone needs to chill out, relax, let people interact in a polite way, and stop pretending to be a victim when they clearly aren't.